I wanted to make this video on Congressman Ron Paul. Obviously, he's not in office anymore, but I was a big fan of Ron Paul. I think he's done a lot of good things for our country. He's a great writer. I followed this guy for about 30 years with a lot of the publishing that he's done. So he's got a website, ronpaulinstitute.org. He's got a weekly column here, and I'm going to actually read it. Most people aren't going to bother going to the link and reading it, so I figured I'd read it for the video. So here you go. And this was just made July 13th, and it's very pertinent given what's going on. Here you go. Despite regularly denouncing the rising socialist menace, President Trump has been pursuing a policy arguably just as, if not more dangerous to liberty and prosperity as anything proposed by Zohran Mamdani or Bernie Sanders, using government funds to purchase partial ownership of private companies. The Trump administration has obtained ownership interests of approximately $27 billion in 30 companies since January of 2025. While President Trump and his defenders claim making these investments will benefit the American people, the truth is this policy will harm most Americans. The policy distorts the capital markets by incentivizing investors to support these companies because the investors believe government's ownership interests creates a de facto government guarantee of a stock's value. For example, after the government announced that it would acquire 10% ownership in chip manufacturer Intel, the company's stock price had a big increase. When investors allocate the resources to companies because government is supporting those companies, capital is deprived to businesses that can thrive by pleasing consumers instead of politicians. This reduces economic growth, harming consumers and workers. It also incentivizes other businesses to seek government investment instead of developing ways to better serve consumers. Government investment in private companies means government control. So the beneficiaries of government support will be forced to make decisions based on political considerations rather than based on what will maximize profits. This will have negative effects on the companies and the entire economy. Given how many Republicans have been critical of the rise of an openly socialist wing of the Democratic Party, it would be responsible to expect congressional Republicans to push back against President Trump's use of taxpayer funds to take ownership interests in private companies. However, not only are most Republicans not speaking out against this policy, but Senate Republicans have included a provision in the fiscal year 2027 National Defense Authorization Act, NDAA, authorizing this policy. The provision in question creates a defense equity investment account that the Pentagon can use to invest as much as $500 million in private companies that produce batteries as well as critical minerals, materials, and chemicals. The bill allows the Defense Department to take an ownership interest in companies in exchange for the Defense Department's investment. This provision is claimed to be just because it ensures the military-industrial complex has reliable supplies. Therefore, anyone who raises concerns about this expansion of the Pentagon's influence over private businesses will be told that this is a limited grant of authority done for national security purposes. History shows that new infringements on liberty often start as limited measures presented as supporting national security and then expand over time. Any Republicans who vote for an NDAA with this provision are endorsing the principle of government funding and control of private businesses. Once they have embraced the principle, it will be difficult for them to oppose future legislation expanding government investment in private businesses. President Trump's policy of using government funds to invest in private companies in exchange for partial government ownership of the companies is not pure socialism. Instead, it is corporatism. Corporatism is where power remains nominally in private hands, but the government gains significant control. If the final version of the NDAA gives congressional authorization to President Trump's corporatist policy, the country will have taken a major step down the road to serfdom, and Republicans will have lost what little credibility they have left as supporters of the free market and limited government. That's the end of the article. A lot of information there. And he doesn't really get into the whole NDAA. A lot of people should look that up in a little bit more detail because that's this merger that they want to have with our military, with Israel, and then they want to have access to all these private corporations. It's nuts what's happening and where it's going. But I don't think that it's going to stop. We don't have enough Republicans that even stand for the truth anymore. We've been sold out. The entire Democratic Party is gone. They're all a bunch of communist, socialist traitors of America, and most of the Republicans have also now gone down the wrong road. We only have a handful left, and then we're in trouble. Anyway, I wanted to make that so you can at least hear that. That's a great article. You should subscribe to his channel if you're not getting this info.